What's happening, world? B Marsh Boxing, and we back at it. Back at it with another one of those controversial decisions, you know what I mean? About to take you back to, I believe, 2006, if I ain't mistaken. 2006, all Mexican warfare, you know what I mean? A fight between Marco Antonio Barrera, at the time the WBC, 130-pound champion, you know what I mean? He had just beat Eric Morales for the 130-pound title at super featherweight. You know what I'm saying? Yes, indeed. So we got Rocky Juarez, who's challenging Marco Antonio Barrera for his WBC belt. You know what I'm saying? You know, Rocky Juarez was 2000, I believe, a silver medalist in the 2000 Olympics. Guy out of Houston, had a big support from the Houston community. You know what I mean? And that's what we got right here, man. Marco Antonio Barrera versus none other than Rocky Juarez or Ricardo Rocky Juarez. You know what I'm saying? The baby-faced assassin had a storied career up until this point, really and truly. By the time he's having this fight right here, win, lose, or draw, he's already had stamped his ticket into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, into the Hall of Fame. You know what I'm saying? You check it. So really and truly, you know, this guy was a legend at this juncture. Like I said, he had just beat Morales in the third fight. You know what I mean? A fight that was kind of controversial. You know what I'm saying? You know, he won via majority decision. You know what I'm saying? But Rocky Juarez, you know what I mean? I think he had one loss coming into this fight, and that was against Humberto Soto, okay, Mexican former 130-pound champ and 135-pound champ, Humberto Soto, okay. So Rocky Juarez, like I said, man, storied career as far as his amateur background, you know what I mean? A silver medalist in the 2000 Olympics, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, he was, what was them Olympics at? That was Sydney, Australia, as a matter of fact, yeah. Sydney, Australia Olympics, all right? So 2006, man, these two got into the ring. Rocky Juarez destined to be a world champion, but we shall see. You know what I mean? Let's get into it. You know, this fight right here is very controversial. Hence why it is in my controversial decision series. You know what I'm saying? You know, in the first round, Barrera is using his jab, circling, using nice lateral movement. You know what I mean? Keeping the man, Rocky Juarez was throwing one punch at a time, but Barrera was jabbing his ears off, you know what I'm saying, and circling, you know, moving to his left, you know what I'm saying, moving clockwise, you know what I mean? And that jab busts up the man Rocky Juarez eyes right eye from the first round. You know what I mean? Lead right hand by Rocky Juarez in this particular round. This is a close round, but there was a flurry. You know, because it's at this pace as you can see right here on the film screen right now. You know what I mean? Clean right hand right there by Rocky Juarez. Barrera still pumping his jab. You know what I'm saying? Throwing jabs to the stomach. You know what I mean? He's basically timing the man Rocky Juarez, you know what I mean? But he had a nice flurry before the round ends, and to me that was what edged the round one for Marco Antonio Barrera, the baby-faced assassin. You know what I'm saying? Round two, Rocky's on the front foot. He's landing power shots. You know what I'm saying? He has two left hooks to the body. You know, he's doubling up his jab, nice double jab, and has Barrera on the ropes. Left hook by Rocky Juarez, draws blood, catches the man Barrera with the mean left hook, and he drew blood already. You know what I mean? So round one, I gave it to Barrera. Round two, I gave it to Rocky Juarez. You know what I mean? You know, it was real interesting to see how Rocky Juarez busted up Barrera's nose with the left hook, especially considering the pace of this fight. You see, nice sneaky left hook in there. You know what I mean? Kind of like an up jab from the man Marco Antonio Barrera. I mean, he's the one who's actually putting his punches together, as opposed to the man Rocky Juarez, who's throwing one at a time. But it's strategic and methodical by Rocky Juarez. Don't get it twisted. You know what I mean? Round three, Rocky Juarez is applying pressure on Marco Antonio Barrera, you know what I mean? Throwing jabs to the stomach, you know what I'm saying? And throwing right hands to the hand and straight right hands. You know what I mean? Jab to the stomach, jab to the head, and straight right hands. You know what I'm saying? Barrera is using a lot of lateral movement, but Rocky Juarez almost knocks down Marco Antonio Barrera in round three. Before the round ends, he catches him with a beautiful left hook. I'm saying clean left hook catches the man right on the forehead, has the man staggering back. If it wasn't for the ropes, that probably should have been counted as a knockdown. You know what I'm saying? So round three, I gave it to Rocky Juarez. Round four, Marco Antonio comes out strong with nice combinations. You know what I mean? Putting his punches together, left left hooks. You know what I'm saying? To the body, right uppercut, left hook to the head. You know what I'm saying? And that combination right there. The left to the body, uppercut, left hook to the head. It backed up the man Rocky Juarez, you know what I mean, to the ropes. You know what I mean, doubling and tripling up his jab before the round ends. And it was a pretty commanding round so far in round four. That was the best round for Marco Antonio Barrera so far. Round five, Marco Antonio Barrera's putting his punches together and he's fighting on the inside. It becomes a phone booth fight, you know what I mean? And on the inside, Rocky Juarez is letting his hands go. I think the inside favored the man Rocky Juarez more than it did Marco Antonio Barrera, who's a better boxer. But Marco Antonio Barrera was the type of boxer who can switch just like that within the snap of a finger. Could switch from a pure outside boxer, you know what I mean, using lateral movement, using superb um, perpetual movement, being the excellent counter puncher that he is, and he can turn it into a brawl real quick, fast, and in a hurry. You know what I'm saying? And in round five, like I said, Barrera's putting his punches together, and on the inside, Rocky Juarez is letting his hands go. You know what I mean? Um, and Marco Antonio Barrera catches Marco Antonio Barrera with a vicious left hook. You know what I mean? Barrera, excuse me, catches Rocky Juarez with a vicious left hook that backs him up. You know what I mean? This was a left hook to the body where, what's his name? Rocky Juarez was winning the inside battle, but that left hook to the body made him back up. You know what I mean? Made him separate the distance. You know what I'm saying? Because he didn't want to catch no more of them type of left hooks. You know what I mean? And it becomes a jab fest, straight right hand combination by Marco Antonio Barrera, uppercuts by Marco Antonio Barrera. So that particular round, I gave it to the baby-faced assassin, Marco Antonio Barrera. Round six, Marco Barrera is beating Rocky to the punch. You know what I mean? Even as an older guy, you know what I mean? He's switching up his offense from the outboxer to closing the distance, unleashing combinations, stepping out, not staying in the pocket too long. You know what I'm saying? The man Rocky Juarez is throwing one punch at a time. And, I gave that particular round to Marco Antonio Barrera because of the activity. You know what I mean? If this guy's throwing combinations, putting his punches together, and Rocky Juarez is throwing one punch at a time, had to give that round to the baby-faced assassin. Round seven was an action-packed round. You know what I mean? Marco Antonio Barrera, you know what I'm saying? He's let's just put in 4 to 5 punch combinations together. You know what I mean? Rocky Juarez was eating a lot of leather in that particular round. But for some reason or the other, the man, um, at least when I watched the fight back in the day, I thought that the man had broken his jaw because he kept spitting out his mouthpiece. You know what I mean? Marco Antonio Barrera. Even though he won that round, he kept spitting out his mouthpiece. He did that also in round eight, spitting out his mouthpiece. But that's a veteran tactic. He was basically buying time. You know what I mean? To me, right now in boxing, currently the guy who does that the best is probably Anthony Joshua. You know what I mean? Does it to the best, as in he hasn't gotten in no trouble for it, like how Diego Corrales got warned for doing that versus Castillo, then ended up knocking him out. You know what I mean? The man, Anthony Joshua's been getting away with it, but in that particular round eight, again, Marco Antonio spits out his mouthpiece. You know what I mean? Rocky Juarez is cutting off the ring, applying pressure, landing beautiful left hooks, straight right hand, straight jab, and right hand behind the jab. You know what I mean? You check it. So that was a good round for the man, Rocky Juarez. You check it. Um, Round nine, Rocky Juarez starts off good. You know what I mean? Starts off well, applying pressure, cutting off the ring, effective aggressiveness. Marco Antonio Barrera is on the move. He's doing more movement than usual, and not unnecessary and not it was unnecessary movement in my opinion. You know what I mean? It was an effective movement. You know what I mean? But then Barrera starts using his jab, you know what I mean? And boxing stayed out of harm's way, not going toe to toe in close quarters, you know what I mean? That was a close round, could have gone either way because both guys had success at some point or the other, you know what I mean? Started off with Rocky Juarez applying the pressure, cutting off the ring with his effective aggressiveness. Then Barrera starts using his lateral movement and not really trying to engage too much with the man Juarez because that's actually favoring Rocky Juarez. I'm saying round 10, Rocky's throwing to the body and head. Right hook, right uppercut, left hook to the body. That was a beautiful combination from Rocky Juarez. Double jab, straight right hand, busts up the man Marco Antonio Barrera's nose. You know what I mean? And Marco Antonio Barrera's bleeding from the mouth. You know what I'm saying? That's why I thought when I seen this fight the first time, I thought that he had broken his jaw because he was spitting out the mouthpiece at least 3 times in this fight between round 7 and 8. And you know, basically couldn't keep that mouthpiece in his mouth. You know what I mean? And he also got his nose busted up, so he's leaking from the nose and mouth. So it's not looking pretty for the man, Marco Antonio Barrera. And actually, Rocky Juarez, who was down plenty of rounds in the first half of the fight, in the second half of the fight, he's kind of dominating, getting back into the mix of things, winning some rounds. You know what I mean? Round 11, OMG. Yeah, even Emmanuel Emmanuel Stewart had his classic line. Oh my gosh. Round 11 was war of attrition, you know what I mean? Back and forth action. Rocky Juarez uppercuts on the inside, phone boot style. Left hooks to the body by Barrera. Flush right hand snaps Marco Antonio Barrera's head back on the ropes. It's a toe-to-toe round right there in round 11. And I had to give round 11 to Rocky Juarez as well. Round 12, same thing. Rocky Juarez wasn't leaving nothing to chance, you know what I mean? He's actually trying to get the stoppage, you know what I mean? 1-2s by Rocky Juarez. The ref keeps stopping the action, you know what I mean? He stopped the action for a guy in round 12. Could you believe that? The referee stopped the action for some guy in somebody's corner to come and wipe the canvas, the middle of the ring, not the corners where the guys sit on their stools. One of the corner men came in and actually got on his knees and was wiping the canvas, stopping the action for at least a good 30 seconds while it was going on and there was warfare. I thought that was real disrespectful, especially to the man Rocky Juarez, you know what I mean? Because he was doing his thing, you know what I mean? You check it, and it bought the man Marco Antonio Barrera precious time. Action resumes. Flush 1-2s by Rocky Juarez. You know what I mean? Marco Antonio's face is busted up. Body shots by Barrera. And basically, that's round 12. And I had round 12 in favor of the man Rocky Juarez. You know what I'm saying? So I had Rocky Juarez winning the championship rounds. You know what I mean? 11 and 12. I even gave Rocky Juarez round 10. You know what I mean? So I gave Marco Antonio Barrera rounds 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9. No knockdowns in this fight. And I gave Rocky Juarez rounds 2, 3, 8, 10, 11, and 12. You know what I'm saying? I actually had this fight a draw. I had this fight a draw, ladies and gents. 114, 114, you know what I mean? It was one of those tough fights. Power punching versus jabs. Barrera had numerous jabs, way more than the man Rocky Juarez. Rocky Juarez, though, dominated by far with the power punches. In boxing, I score power punches over jabs, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? But this was a close fight. Could have gone either way. There goes that left hook right there that caught Barrera on the forehead, man. Pink! Right there. Backed him up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That was right before, I think, at the end of round 3. You know what I mean? Yes, indeed. So, like I said, those type of fights, that's why Castillo versus Mayweather, the first fight was a tough fight to score. That's why Canoli versus Erislandy Lara was a tough fight to score. You know what I mean? Power shots versus the jabs, you know what I'm saying? But I had this fight a draw, you know what I mean? And that's exactly what the judges had. You know what I'm saying? The judges saw this fight as a draw as well, you know what I mean? They had the scorecards. Let me get you guys the scorecards right quick. Um, Let me get you guys the scorecards. Okay, the scorecards was 115, 113. Barrera, 113, 115. Rocky Juarez, 114, 114. Draw. You know what I'm saying? So this fight right here was a split decision draw. And that's how I had it always, ever since I saw this fight back in '06 till today. You know what I mean? While I'm doing this controversial decisions, you know what I mean? But what really disgusted me was after they declared this fight a draw, Marco Antonio Barrera retains his world title. You know what I'm saying? A judge changed his scorecard, you know what I mean? And made the fight, and rather than the 114, 114, um, what do you call it? 114, 114 draw. That particular judge changed his scorecard to 115, 114 after the verdict had been read, after both guys went in the locker room. You know what I'm saying? And they awarded the man Marco Antonio Barrera the victory. I didn't like that one bit. You know what I'm saying? Reminds me shades of what's the guy's name? Winky Wright versus Harry Simon, a fight that happened in South Africa, you know what I mean? Where the same thing happened. The fight was declared a draw or something, you know what I'm saying? A draw. And then uh, Winky Wright retains his title, his WBO 154-pound title. Then he's in the locker room doing an interview. These people come and tell him, oh, they changed the scorecard. They gave the victory to the man Harry Simon. Winky Wright was like, man, what you talking about, man? He ain't getting my belt. But that's how Harry Simon became a world champion, you know what I mean? With the WBO 154-pound title. Harry Simon's a two-time world champion, but that's for a whole nother video that you could check right here on my playlist, Controversial Decisions. You know what I mean? And, look, Rocky Juarez was a silver medalist in the gold medal. Rocky Juarez never became a world champion. You know what I mean? Now, this particular fight, I had it a draw, so I wasn't mad one bit with the decision. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't mad at the decision, but when you come back and say that the man Rocky Juarez is not that the fight has now been awarded to Marco Antonio Barrera, man, I man Rocky Juarez, the man Rocky Juarez, because he did what he can. Yeah, I don't know too many guys who busted up the man Marco Antonio Barrera's face like this, like Rocky Juarez did. You know what I mean? I know the how the face looks isn't going to determine the decision of the fight, but it was real disgusting how they did the man Rocky Juarez. You know what I mean? You know, a guy who's never been a world champion. You know, a guy who was destined to be a world champion, but unfortunately for him, he came in an era where, you know, I really was rooting for this guy. You know what I mean? I wanted him to be part of that Pacquiao, Marco Antonio Barrera, Juan Manuel Marquez, Eric Morales. I wanted him to be part of that super featherweight class. You know what I'm saying? Of great fighters. You know what I mean? And to be in the mix. And I thought that the fight with Barrera was a draw, but they took the draw back and gave the decision to split decision to Marco Antonio Barrera. Not to mention, this fight is in the Staples Center, Los Angeles. And if you know anything about Marco Antonio Barrera's career, this guy, when he came from Mexico and started fighting in USA, he was fighting at the Great Western Forum in Los Angeles. They had a whole promotional stable over there with a whole network for just boxing. That's where Mark Too Sharp Johnson came up, you know what I mean? In the Great Western Forum ranks, you know what I mean? Even Juan Manuel Marquez used to fight at the Great Western Forum, you know what I'm saying? Before he started getting nationwide exposure, you know what I mean? So Rocky Juarez was fighting basically against the judges, the crowd, the referee in round 12 who helped Marco Antonio Barrera buy precious time with the guy coming to wipe down the canvas in the middle of the circle in the ring, like where they at. I thought that was a raw deal that they did for the man Rocky Juarez, and unfortunately, he still never ever became a world champion. They did a rematch right after this, you know what I mean? And Marco Antonio Barrera won the fight, a close fight, but I thought he won the fight clearly, you know what I mean? And then also, you know, Rocky Juarez had those fights with Chris John, you know what I'm saying? You know, The first fight with Chris John, I thought he won that fight. You know what I mean? That was his opportunity again to be a featherweight champion with the, um, what do you call it? The WBA title that Chris John held for many years. You know what I mean? But God works in mysterious ways. You know what I'm saying? Marco Antonio Barrera, I believe, after these fights, the rematch, the two fights that he had with Rocky Juarez, he fought Marco Antonio, excuse me, Juan Manuel Marquez after, you know what I mean? And he lost his super featherweight WBC title in a fight that was, hey, it could have gone either way. When I first saw the fight, I thought that the man Barrera won the fight, you know what I'm saying? Might have to do a controversial decisions on that, although the judges scored it a unanimous decision. It could have gone either way, but like I said, I thought Barrera won that fight. So God works in mysterious ways. They robbed Rocky Juarez. Hey, I guess they had to repeat and do the same thing to the man Marco Antonio Barrera when he fought Juan Manuel Marquez. You heard? So B March Boxing. Let me know how you guys scored this fight. I had it 114, 114, a draw. You know what I'm saying? I don't think anybody did enough to win this fight, and that's very disgusting how they robbed the man. Uh, Rocky Juarez at least twice. You know what I mean? You know. That's, yeah. So let me know in the comment section who you guys thought won this fight. You know what I mean? I had it a draw, and leave your thoughts and comments. Be Marsh Boxing, another controversial decisions. I'm doing plenty of them. I told y'all I was slacking last year, 2019. I only did two of them, and I'm coming back to back this week, man. Got time right now while we quarantined in. You know what I mean? So leave your thoughts and comments. I'm gone. Peace.